What is your native language?
Bengali, Gujarati, Punjabi, Marathi,
Telugu.
हिस्टोरियन रामचंद्र गुहा के अनुसार भारत की आज़ादी के दौरान हमारी कंस्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में डिस्कस किए गए मुद्दों में सबसे ज्यादा डिबेटेबल और डिस्प्यूटेबल मुद्दा था कि कौन सी भाषा भारत की राष्ट्रभाषा चुनी जाए। इससे पहले 1925 में यंग इंडिया में लिखे एक लेख में महात्मा गांधी हिंदी और उर्दू के मेल से जन्मी हिंदुस्तानी भाषा को अपना समर्थन दे चुके थे। उनका कहना था कि भारत को एकजुट रखने के लिए एक कॉमन लैंग्वेज होना बहुत जरूरी है। जब कंस्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में नेशनल लैंग्वेज की डिबेट शुरू हुई तो हिंदुस्तानी या हिंदी दो भाषाओं के बीच विचार किया जा रहा था, लेकिन इसी बीच इंडिया का पार्टीशन हो जाने से हिंदुस्तानी भाषा, जिसमें उर्दू की झलक साफ दिखाई देती थी, उसका विरोध शुरू हो गया और हिंदुस्तानी के विकल्प को ड्रॉप कर दिया गया।
The idea was always going between national language, not a national language, having more than one national language, and what should be the national language. So several suggestions came, including one of the most interesting suggestions that Telugu should be the most also the national language.
Mr. Shah says that majority of the country speaks Hindi, and so in order for there to be smooth communication, it would help that you have one language, and he suggests that Hindi should be that language.
अनेक भाषाएं, अनेक बोलियां, कई लोगों को लगता है देश के लिए बोझ है। मुझे लगता है अनेक भाषाएं, अनेक बोलियां हमारी देश की सबसे बड़ी ताकत है, इस देश की सबसे बड़ी ताकत। परंतु जरूरत है कि देश की एक भाषा हो जिसके कारण विदेशी भाषाओं को जगह न मिले, और देश की एक भाषा हो, इसी दृष्टि को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमारे पुरखों ने, हमारे स्वतंत्र सेनानियों ने राजभाषा की कल्पना की थी और राजभाषा के रूप में हिंदी को स्वीकार किया था।
சரி, இனிமேல தமிழ்லே பேசணும், புரியுதான்னு சொல்லுங்க.
You look at our country, North India is more populous. North India has more, and already Hindi has done away with a lot of other languages in other states. I mean, they don't even realize it. But there were so many languages in Madhya Pradesh, so many languages in Bihar, which have all got sidelined because of, Hindi has a tendency to sort of take over.
So if you look at North India, there are several distinct languages that are spoken. Bhojpuri is one example, and then there are Rajasthanis. There are these several dialects of Hindis that are spoken in regions, and for some reason they are not even seen as complete languages now, because there is this one Hindi that seems to be tying it together.
How this is happening and who is doing this first let me tell you who is doing this. Now, this is done by the Census of India. Census of India every 10 years takes out census across the nation and asks people to give out what they call mother tongue. They don't ask you what is their language. Now you give a list of mother tongues, and then for the last census that is available 2011, they recorded some close to some 20,000 names of mother tongues, and those mother tongue names then are racialized. People decide what constitutes a language. Now, this is a very arbitrary decision. There was no scientific way of telling what is a language and what is a dialect. So the very exact point that you pointed out, Hindi, for instance, now in 2011 census has 49 other speech forms associated with it. So if you look at the language census table, you will see under Hindi a lot of other languages included, including languages like Marathi. But this idea of saying one thing being a language or X being a language and the rest being a dialect of it is essentially a power game. Okay, and that is done in India through the Ministry of Home Affairs, under which census comes up, the division of census comes.
Do you think Hindi is a national language?
Definitely.
First, it is not.
I don't think it is.
I do. No. I do. Yeah. No.
Yes.
Rashtrabhasha. Absolutely not.
Do you think Hindi is being imposed on people?
I think the concept of imposition is very media-driven narrative to create more sensations rather than what it is in reality.
My mom made me study Hindi for 8 years. I knew I did not want to.
At The time when I studied in school, there was initially compulsory Hindi for second language, and I struggled with it.
I was forced to learn it when I was in school because it was touted as the national language of our country, even though that is bullshit.
Yes, you're right in saying that there is some imposition of Hindi that's happening there, and that's unfortunate.
Definitely. Because in a lot of areas, the only languages that you can use for documentation is English and Hindi. When you travel, a lot of places only have English and Hindi in the announcements.
It does in South India, yeah. It clearly does. In fact, once I was going out with this in this auto, and this auto was started lecturing me on how Hindi is being imposed by North Indians coming here in Chennai.
ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ்னா வேர்ல்டுக்குள்ளே ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. அவங்க ஸ்டேட்டில் வந்து இப்போ இவங்க வந்து பேசுகிறாங்கன்னா அவங்க கையில் பேச முடியும், அவ்வளோதான். அதுக்குன்னு அதே நம்ம ஃபாலோ பண்ண முடியும்.
I don't think so. I think it's voluntarily because Hindi is something that is binding all Indians together.
Does the system play a role in imposing Hindi?
So, I think absolutely yes. Because if the government says nothing in the face of the imposition of a language, they're saying everything. In their inaction lies what a citizen has to do, right? And if they're not saying anything wrong about what someone is making me do something, then that's completely their fault.
Of course, I mean, the fact that you look, Hindi synagogues here in South India, you could see that how central government has this agenda, to this idea of one nation, one dash dash dash, so one nation, one language.
Yeah. Yes. And that has nothing to do with one party or the other. It has always been a sort of a central government thing. If you go back also, you see the anti-Hindi agitations that used to happen in the 60s and 70s, which happened. That time it wasn't there was no BJP at all at that point of time. But even the Congress government had this.
Most often people think the 1965, 1960s, it is anti-Hindi agitation in Tamil Nadu and stuff like that. Not necessarily. Quite a few constituencies in India, or there are quite a few sections of Indian population was not happy with that arrangement. So you have the Bengal, which is also revolted. In fact, the first voice of opposition came from the Bengal, not from Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu's opposition was long-lasting, but the earliest anti-Hindi agitations, or the idea of an anti-Hindi agitation started, in fact, from Bengal. No, it's not from Tamil Nadu. But it became much more pronounced in the south.
Even our own Rajagopalachari, Rajaji, he was part of the Congress. He was trying to bring in Hindi here. It has been something, even though he was a Tamil, person himself.
Does India need one language?
तुम्हारे बाकी देशों से पंगे कम है जो तुम अपने देश में पंगे खड़े करो.
आप ये मानते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान में हिंदी होनी चाहिए जरूर चाहिए.
India is very heterogeneous. There should be something that should bind a nation.
A lot of people feel that for better communication, we need one official language or something like that. Do you think we need one, or one should be given preference over one?
So who's better communication? That's my first question. Okay. Now, government servants communicating among themselves, if they need a language, let them adopt a language. But why should the citizens adopt it?
Is a national language different from a common language?
What do you mean by a common language?
So, for example, in the US, English is widely spoken, but they have no national language as such.
अपने देश में इस तरह से लोगों पे कुछ थोपना या कहना कि हम सुपीरियर हैं, हमारी भाषा को तुम याद करो, कैसे याद करेंगे वो यार? They're not proficient in Hindi. They're better, they're more comfortable in English. और English भी हमारी पराई भाषा कहाँ है? English has become a part of a language. You have to accept the fact that English has now become a part of a culture, of a society. And let's not divide people further in this country.
सबसे पहली बात तो लैंग्वेज टीचर के साथ साथ मैं एक नागरिक हूँ, और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण जो लैंग्वेज का सवाल है वो राष्ट्रीयता के सवाल से जुड़ता है.
The idea of a nation state. This is a European concept, which is the nation state framework that India also chose to impose on this region. And so then the main characteristics of the nation state is that you have one religion, one language, one political system, etc., etc. This, I think, is fundamentally problematic because then it excludes diversity. It really is not antithetical to a democracy. We live in a multicultural world, and so if you believe that this is a subcontinent, then you don't really focus on one language. You need to have several languages that should be considered official. But again, due to administrative reasons and technical complexities, you might choose to have one indigenous language that is widely spoken. And so here in this context, people believe that it is Hindi, and rightly so in my opinion. But you need to have room for English because now, for instance, for want of generalizing, in North India, Hindi can be the lingua franca. Two people from two different North Indian states can reach out to each other, can have a conversation in Hindi. In South India, the lingua franca is English. And so you see South Indians from, say, different states communicating with each other in English more often than not.
I think there's a cultural aspect to it, where
There
the
is.
language binds the culture.
Yeah.
But in a country like India, where we have so many different cultures, and within each culture, variants of the same language, I think we need to have a common language so that it's easier to communicate between various cultures. But if you do create a national language, that could potentially cause issues of imposing it on people.
And this whole idea of one nation, one language, one religion, one people, we're not robots. The unique thing about India is that we have so much diversity. The more languages, the more religions, the more kinds of cultures we have, that's our richness. We don't want to make clones of each other. We want us to be diverse and go on with that diversity.
That only means that we need to have more diversity in the languages that we are learning, rather than really thinking about exhausting all the diversity and having one national language that everybody needs to learn.
So I think that's a huge strength in our country, and trying to do away with that is just an injustice to ourselves.
Unity in diversity is a promise we made when we made India into a republic.
What's in a language? क्या सिर्फ हिंदी हमारी राष्ट्रभाषा या राजभाषा हो सकती है? क्या आपको लगता है मैंने जो अभी बोला वो सबको समझ में आया होगा? Can Hindi be the language that unites us, or will it be the one that divides us?